This episode of Wild Talk brings big conversation and real world gear to the forefront. How did the Hunting and Angling Caucus get formed?
It's based on the American Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation model, Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus, where it's nonpartisan.
I'm joined by Member of Parliament Blaine Calkins for a straight-up discussion on the issues facing hunters, firearms owners, and conservationists right now.
So we've gotten to the point now where there's so many rules, there's so many laws on the books, and by the way, every gun in Canada is illegal.
Yep.
Unless it's in the hands of somebody who has a license.
Then, in Tools of the Trade, we put the Umarex ReadyAir Compressor through its paces, field testing performance where it matters most. It all starts right now on Wild Talk. Welcome to Wild Talk, the untamed voice of Canada's outdoors, where raw stories, real people, and wild places collide. This episode of Wild Talk is one for the books. Let's talk wild. Wild Talk, powered by Better Call Paul, is brought to you by Better Hunting, Better Stories, Better Call Paul. Umarex, Hunt with Air. Bronc Beer, Great Buckin' Beer. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting edition of Wild Talk. Finally got him for an hour or so. So this is my opportunity to welcome Blaine Calkins from the Conservative Party of Canada, who is the official opposition shadow minister for hunting, angling, and conservation. Did I get that right?
That's close enough, you bet. Otherwise known as the shadow minister for fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Also the current chair of the Hunting and Angling Caucus too.
Yeah, the Conservative Hunting and Angling Caucus. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a partisan caucus, but we're the only party that actually has a partisan caucus to advocate for and to work on the issues that are pertinent to hunters, anglers, and conservationists, trappers, the great outdoors. Caucus, I like to call it. So
exactly, it's, as you say, it's the fun part of it, right? So let's just get this out of the way. Some people are going to want to know, yeah, you're a politician, but you're also a hunter, you're a firearms owner, and a fierce advocate for our way of life. So how did you get into hunting? What dragged you into it?
Yeah, so all right, here's where the 10-minute answer starts. So I'll give you the story. So I live in central Alberta. I grew up on a farm in the county of Lacombe, which is just north of Red Deer. Growing up on a farm, of course, we were outside all the time. So I'm surrounded by nature. Of course, we had a mixed farm in the early 70s. That's how old I am. Eventually moved into a cow-calf operation. But while I was a kid, I was tasked by my dad and my grandfather. Luckily, grew up in that family farm type of scenario where my grandparents and my family, my mom and dad and my siblings all grew up in the same farmyard. And my job when I got home in June, May and June, when I got home on the school bus was to go out into the pasture. And at first I was given a snare and some traps that I would put in the hole, and I would get gophers, because gophers, of course, can be a menace to farmers. So that was vermin control, and eventually I graduated to my uncle's Crossman fold-in-half air rifle with 177. I put the little round tip pellets in there. I used to store them right underneath my lip, and of course we didn't realize the dangers of lead poisoning at that particular point in time. But I'm still fairly normal at 57. And I would tuck these pellets under my lip, and I would go out and I would be way more proficient and way more effective at getting gophers. And I think I was given 5 cents a gopher tail that I brought back. That's what my grandpa gave me, was 5 cents a gopher tail. Eventually earned my way to the point where I could then turn that money into boxes of 22 shorts. And that's when I think it's a Cooey Model 39 that was my dad's, little single shot. You pull the hammer back, and it just became a tool. It just became part of who I was. It became something I could do with ease and confidence. And of course, our family outings turned into mostly centered around fishing trips, camping out west in the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains. So the hunting and fishing just kind of came at me that way. And I wanted to become, it eventually led to me wanting to become a Fish and Wildlife Officer, Conservation Officer. So
Okay.
I took a zoology degree from the University of Alberta. Fisheries and aquatic sciences were my mainstay. I've had a passion for fish, so I took all the ichthyology, limnology, even paleontology courses that dealt with fish. Over the years, worked as a fishing guide on Great Bear Lake, worked doing biophysical inventories of Edmonton River Valley parks, worked for a paleontologist one summer at the university, worked for Alberta Fish and Wildlife on walleye minimum size limit experiments back in the early 90s. Then went to Lethbridge College and bolted on a conservation law enforcement diploma and worked as a park ranger and a national park warden for a while. And during that time, I fell in with, of course, you can imagine falling in with a crowd that liked to also go hunting. So that's where I evolved from just vermin control into going out and deer hunting in southern Alberta when I was at Lethbridge College there. And I just graduated from there. And I've always been an angler, always been an outdoor enthusiast, always liked conservation, always liked our parks and our wild spaces, crown land, whether it was on foot hiking, backpacking, or whether it's, on a quad, whichever the case might be, whatever. I like to have that access. I like to have those options, and we have one of the greatest playgrounds in the world to go do these things in here in Canada, it's particularly in Alberta. So I just fell in love with all of it, and then eventually became a member of Parliament. And so I found that the less time I had to devote to hunting, the more I wanted to go. So the busier I got, the busier I made myself, and so now if I'm not working hard, I'm playing hard, and hunting, fishing, and helping out wherever I can, advocating for firearms owners, responsible firearms owners, and just want to do it right and make sure that my kids and my grandkids have the same opportunities that my father and grandfather left for me. And that's what it's all about to me.
You're not just somebody who got handed a portfolio and said, go. You've got the background to back it up, right?
I like to think so. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the, but I mean, as far as, there's 300 and some members of Parliament. I'm sure there's a few others that like to go hunting and fishing as much as I do. I had a few colleagues that over time, like Robert Sopuck, the late Robert Sopuck out of Manitoba. We kind of coalesced this whole Conservative Hunting and Angling Caucus. We worked with then Finance Minister Jim Flaherty, Prime Minister Stephen Harper. We created recreational conservation fishing partnership programs. We were starting to build towards something where hunting and angling weren't something that was just seen as an acceptable choice by conservationists, but an actual critical partners in conservation, and trying to get back to some of those earlier roots, back to the Teddy Roosevelt era and the North American model of wildlife management, and that all coalesced. And I, when Bob Sopuck retired from Parliament, myself and a number of colleagues from coast to coast, there's over 65 MPs and senators that are members of the Conservative Hunting and Angling Caucus. That's a large group. All support what we're doing, and making sure that hunters, anglers, trappers, conservationists, firearms owners are respected and valued contributors to our economy, but more importantly to our social and cultural fabric and our natural heritage that we've inherited from previous generations.
That's where I wanted to dig next, but you kind of did it for me. Is how did the Hunting and Angling Caucus get formed? And you kind of dug into it a little bit. So
yeah. So, but we also have there's an all-party version of it as well. So right. I have a colleague that co-chairs with. So it's kind of like it's based on the American Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation model, or Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus, where it's nonpartisan. So there is some folks involved in that. I'm involved in that as well, but I've kind of stayed on the partisan side, because sometimes you need to be partisan to get things done, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's the way our system is designed. It's not a flaw; it's a feature. And so I've kind of gravitated towards that side. So I'm working hard, and I'm just so glad to have this opportunity. I'm so grateful that Pierre, when he became the leader, recognized. There's more people that fish in Canada than there is that play golf and hockey combined, right? And then there's, on top of that, there's another 2.5 million gun owners, and a couple million people every year that buy hunting licenses in this country. Mm-hmm. So it's millions of Canadians, it's billions of dollars, but more importantly, it's mental health, it's
Yeah.
It's family time. It's connecting. It's connecting with nature. It's connecting with each other. It's bonding. It's great experiences. It's core memories that people have. And you know, it all goes back to that adage. You know, like when you're on your deathbed, nobody ever says they wish they would have spent more time working. They wish they would have spent more time doing what they love, which is what I'm so grateful to be able to do right now. For me, getting up every day and representing my constituents, but being able to, on top of that, bolt on looking after hunters, anglers, firearms owners is just, I'm very blessed. I can't describe it any other way. I'm so lucky to be able to do this.
You've spent years advocating for hunters, anglers, firearms owners, and what's the issue, I suppose, that you're hearing most often from Canadians right now?
I mean, obviously, the firearms issue has been front and center for quite some time now, going back to 2020. So over half a decade now, law-abiding gun owners have been,
Yes.
um, and we saw it coming. It seems to be I'm not trying to be partisan, but it seems to be every time there's a Liberal government, there's new regulations, there's new requirements, and it just seems to be an onerous thing for certain industries and certain groups of people in Canada. Mm-hmm. And whether you're an oil and gas worker in my home province of Alberta, or a firearms owner anywhere across Canada, it's not a fun time. And we've always maintained that law-abiding gun owners are not the problem. We know they're not the problem. The police have said that they're not the problem. I just really appreciate Pierre Poilievre standing firm on this, and I think he's actually won the debate in the court of public opinion. But for reasons I can't understand, the government seems to be hell bent on continuing to pursue this agenda, spending, I don't know how much money they spent on the long gun registry, that failed boondoggle of a program. It was well over, approaching $2 billion. They're up to another $1 billion on this. They've banned thousands of makes and models of firearms across Canada. They know about the ones that were on the restricted list, but they don't know about the non-restricted long guns. Estimates are that there's only going to be somewhere between 3% and 4% compliance with the law. And the government, when they announced the cap, the $742 million for the program, basically said that they're not expecting Canadians to comply. Mm-hmm. And when they put that cap in place, they create a Hunger Games type of scenario. I mean, who does this? Who actually behaves this way? Where it's like, if you turn in your guns, with the more people that turn in the guns, the less money you're going to get for them. That's pitting your. It's a bizarre way to try and build confidence and earn trust, compliance. So yeah, I myself and all of my colleagues have been working hard on committee, whether you go back to Bill C-21 and dealing with the orders in council and the legislative changes, the freeze on handguns. I mean, it's been ruinous for those who are in the sports shooting. It's particularly ruinous for those in the sports shooting side of the equation, but it's also affected numerous makes and models of shotguns and rifles that people would use for either, like I said, varmint control or even hunting, right? So it's definitely problematic, and it doesn't make any sense. And while they were doing this for the last 6 of the last 10 years, dangerous violent crime has increased because at the same time they were banning lawful ownership and use of firearms, they were changing the laws, getting rid of mandatory minimum penalties for things like, extortion using a gun, robbery using a gun. And lo and behold, we've got extortion up 300, 400%, up to several thousand% in some communities across Canada. And violent crime, I think, had exceeded over 100% increase for a couple of years during the last 10 years. So changing of the bail laws, changing of, relaxing all of these criminal justice pieces of legislation, while at the same time cracking down on people who aren't the problem. As a matter of fact, statistically speaking, if you look at the statistics, if you take a look at gun owners versus non-gun owners, like the homicide rate for gun owners is even less than, regular law-abiding. You take the gang members are the worst, right? Gangs, so
Mhm.
people that are known criminals, part of the criminal element. I think I did some research one time on just looked at the Government of Canada's website. It was the RCMP's website, and I'm just talking about youth gangs. So only youth gangs, not all, just youth gangs. Youth gangs over a 5-year period that we looked at were responsible for about 46% of the deaths and violent crimes using guns. Just youth gangs, and that was about 7,000 to 8,000 people involved in these gangs, according to the police. So that meant, and you compare that to some of the crimes committed by law-abiding gun owners who are responsible for a handful of fatalities every year across Canada, 2.4 million people. And a youth gang member was 3,300 times. And so you add 2 more zeros on that for a percentage. 3,300 times more likely to commit a crime using a gun, commit a violent crime using a gun than a law-abiding gun owner. Yet all this time and effort, all this money has been spent going after law-abiding gun owners rather than going after smuggling and gangs and organized crime. So for reasons that are inexplicable to, I think, any reasonable person, the government pursued these policies and actually made it worse, made it easier for criminals, made it harder for law-abiding citizens, and created, I think, some very unsafe parts of our country right now. They're trying to put that toothpaste back in the tube right now, but it's not going well.
The great folks over at Umarex have sent us up a few air rifles to play with. Holy smokes, that's fast. And this one, if you have the Air Saber or the Air Hammer, this is a must-have accessory. This compressor will actually, believe it or not, pump those air rifles up. The Air Hammer, 4,500 PSI. The Air Saber, 3,625 PSI. Probably take you a long time with a hand pump, so definitely get the compressor. Well worth it. Super easy to hook up to the compressor. A little spring-loaded. Just push it on till it clicks, and then fire up the compressor and it charges right up. You set it for your target PSI, hit the go button. It'll keep pumping until it hits that pressure and shut itself off. You can actually take this in the field with you too. It has 2 spots here on the side and it comes with a set of jumper cables to hook up to your car battery, and you can actually power the compressor in the field right from your battery. One thing to always remember with this compressor though, before you take this off the Air Hammer, which has a built-in connector, on the Air Saber it has a probe, an air filling probe. Make sure that you unscrew the bleeder valve and release the pressure before you pull that probe out of the Air Saber, before you disconnect this. On the Air Saber, if you pull it out with all the pressure in there, you'll blow the O-rings and you're gonna end up replacing O-rings almost every time you charge it. Let that pressure out with the bleeder valve right here and you'd be good to go. Then you can take it out or take it off the Air Hammer. Remember, you're playing with over 3,500, 3,600 PSI on both of these air rifles, so it's a lot of pressure. You don't want to mess around with it.
There's so many experts there that are saying this isn't going to work, this isn't working, you're going after the wrong people, and they refuse to dial it back.
I think there's 5 police departments in the entirety of Canada that have agreed to go along with this, and virtually every police force in Canada has said thanks but no thanks. We don't want any part of this, because they know, right?
Exactly.
They know where their efforts and their time should be spent, and it shouldn't be banging on the doors of their friends and neighbors in the community. By the way, many of these, many police officers, prison guards, correction officers, military people, veterans. I mean, they're all, lots of them are law-abiding gun owners themselves. They're like, what the heck? Like, what's going on?
Absolutely. It's like taking away your car because your neighbor drove drunk, right? It doesn't make sense.
Sure doesn't.
Yeah. So while we're on that topic, the firearms amnesty, it got extended again. What do you thoughts on that?
This time though, so I mean, one of our amazing firearms advocacy groups in Canada, I think this particular case was the CCFR, challenged, has been challenging the lawfulness of this at various levels of court, and they've appealed it now all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. And the Supreme Court of Canada, I think, only hears about 5 or 6% of the cases that were appealed. And lo and behold, they've decided to hear this particular case. And in doing so, the amnesty for law-abiding gun owners, according to the government, was going to be terminated at the end of October of this year, 2026. But because the Supreme Court's probably not going to deal with the court challenge before that, I don't know the correct terminology. All I know is, I don't think injunction is the right word, but something like an injunction was filed saying we can't have this amnesty expire unless we get clarity, until we get clarity from the courts. So the courts basically told the government they had to extend the amnesty to 90 days beyond the ruling or the judgment or the verdict from the court. So that certainly gives some hope to law-abiding gun owners, and I'm hopeful that law-abiding Canadian gun owners will have a fair hearing from the Supreme Court, and we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, there's a stay of execution, so to speak. But like I said before, I mean, there's only about 3 to 4% uptake on this buyback program anyway. So it's just an unfortunate mess. It's a mess that didn't need to happen. It's disenfranchised so many Canadians from their own government. It's created distrust. We know because the minister was caught talking. He says the truth to his constituents, and then gets up to a microphone and says the complete opposite to Canadians on behalf of the government, and basically said that this is all a vote buying exercise in Quebec, and the rest of the country just has to accept that. So I appreciate that flash of honesty, but it would be nice if it was actually displayed as a matter of policy, not as a matter of like what a bizarre thing for a sitting cabinet minister to say, well, if you get in trouble, I'll come and bail you out. Like, like this is bizarre.
Hearing that
bizarre stuff, right?
Conversation.
It's dystopian. It's completely dystopian.
Absolutely backwards, but it is, as you said, a little bit of a flicker of hope on the end. So for the layperson, the amnesty simply means that there is, as you say, a stay of execution. Those firearms that are banned, prohib, can't be touched, can't be sold, can't be transferred, can't be used, right?
So what the amnesty does is it basically means that the laws that will come into force don't apply. So the laws are changed, but they're not enforceable yet. So the amnesty is, you have an amnesty from the enforcement of those laws, but the laws are still on the books. So nothing has changed that way. The Supreme Court will make its ruling one way or the other, and the government will then have 90 days, or citizens will have 90 days to deal with whatever the verdict of the court is, whatever that happens to be. So,
right.
But yeah, so if the government has to reverse the laws or undo some of the laws, then they've got 90 days to do it. They may have a process where they can apply for an extension of that amnesty in order to. It takes quite a while to get a bill passed in Parliament. So I don't think the Conservatives would be holding up any legislation on that. But depending on when the verdict comes down and where the House is in its sitting calendar, it could affect. They could ask for an extension of that in order for the government to be compliant with the court ruling, or the court will find in favor of the government, and then citizens will have the government will have 90 days to continue on and finish up whatever program it is that the courts deem that they're allowed to do. So it's a coin toss, I think, at this particular point, but certainly hopeful that we get a good verdict from the Supreme Court, and hopeful that we have good lawyers representing gun owners. So that takes time, effort, and treasure. So hopefully hopefully the coffers on behalf of gun owners are full. So
yeah, I think one of the most frustrating things for me as a firearms owner in general is that they keep moving the goalposts, and they've never clearly defined what success to them looks like. They keep going, is, well, we're going to extend it, and if you do this, when you see them in front of a camera or microphone, they have no idea what the end goal looks like. And I'm sure you're seeing the same.
So I mean, going back to the 30s when the original I think the handgun registry it was at the time, you move up through the 60s and 70s and you take a look at the introduction of the Firearms Acquisition Certificate and the licensing program. I think that the deal always was, we just want some regulations, but we'll respect law-abiding gun owners. We'll just make a few rules, and if you comply with these rules, you'll be fine. But it seems like every time there's a new government, they keep, like you say, it just every time there's a federal liberal government, things get worse for law-abiding gun owners. They never ever get better, insofar as as the community, we always lose ground. It seems like whenever there's a liberal government in some form or another. Some of the rules are fine. Look, I think licensed gun owners just want to say, look, I want to follow the rules. I want to be a law-abiding citizen, but don't make it impossible.
Yeah,
stop making it like so. I mean, so we've gotten to the point now where there's so many rules, there's so many laws on the books, and by the way, every gun in Canada is illegal, unless it's in the hands of somebody who has a license, to have one. So the entire system is built on that premise. Everything is illegal unless the government. So it's a permission-based system. I don't know of too many other things where you need a license just to own something. You need a license to drive a car, but you don't need a license to own it. So it's like this is the most onerous rules applied to society. Like I said, going back to the argument I was making earlier, taking a look at criminals, law-abiding non-gun owners, and law-abiding gun owners. Law-abiding gun owners are the safest, most vetted people. We are the least likely group of people because we know that if we commit a crime, we do anything, the police are going to come and they have the laws on the books. They're going to take our guns. So we keep our noses clean on purpose because we know what the consequences are going to be. So that's where we're at, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And really, there's not really any more blood you can get out of this stone, other than just taking our guns. And now they're at that point where they're taking our guns. I mean, the arguments we used back when they had the long gun registry was, the only reason you want the registry is so you know where they all are, so that eventually someday you can come and take them. Well, that proved to be true, because here they are when the next time they formed government after the Stephen Harper government, where we respected law-abiding gun owners and we trusted our fellow citizens. Here we are, it's playing out and it's becoming true. So what's going to stop them? So this isn't going to stop crime. No, it's not going to do anything. So what's going to happen the next time? They get a timeout. Let's say conservatives are back in power. We respect law-abiding gun owners. We put all these, get rid of all of these provisions that Pierre has said he'll get rid of, that the Liberals have put in place. And then what's going to happen next time? They're just going to go even further. I mean, but it just, time and time again, it's proven that we spend an awful lot of money chasing the wrong people, because it's not about public safety. It's about control and buying votes, plain and simple.
They keep these sound bites moving that they're assault rifles, they're weapons of war.
Do you remember what they said? They said they were going to take these things and give them to Ukraine, and then Ukraine said, thanks, but no thanks. These are not weapons of war.
Yeah, we don't need a 22 that your grandson or granddaughter used to shoot grouse.
Yeah, the most common gun that was declared in the buyback, I think it was 14,000. It was a 22. Yeah.
It was 22.
Remember that gun I was telling you about, that little Cooey Model 39, that little single shot 22, same caliber of firearm that I was trusted with, by the way, when I was like early double digits, to go out in the field by myself and shoot gophers.
Oh, absolutely.
My grandfather and my father trusted me with a firearm when I was like 12 years old. My government doesn't trust me now with my with my semi-automatic 22 when I'm 57. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Crazy. It's crazy. And it's simply based on the furniture it wears, right? You got the Mossberg 715, I think it is. And there's two of them. Yeah. One completely prohibited, the exact same mechanism in the other one, not prohibited, simply because of what it looks like.
Yeah, it's just,
yeah, it's a mess. So
I can't explain it.
yeah, I think if we tried, we'd sit here for hours and just we'd be dumbfounded, right? It just doesn't make sense. So what would a practical firearms policy look like to you?
Yeah, so a simplified classification system. Look, that we know what the rules are with handguns. Pretty straightforward, right? I mean, there's things that that are easily measurable and easily definable. And we can do the same thing with long guns. It's not a problem, and you just need certainty and predictability. There's firearms manufacturers and shop owners here in Canada that have worked with the government, negotiated with the government in creating a new compliant firearm, just to mass produce these things, just to find out that they're now they're now non-compliant. Right?
Mhm.
There's some examples right here in Canada where it's like you shake your head. It's like I went step by step with the government. So things have to be reliable and predictable. So a simplified classification system, having an actual technical committee that actually looks at these things, that involves everybody, not just a handful of people behind secret closed doors, but actually get some people in there, military expertise, police expertise, hunting expertise, involving everybody who's a stakeholder in the equation. There's some brilliant minds in this country that know how to do these things, and we can set up a system that is reasonable. I think Canadians aren't at the point where they just don't want any rules or regulations at all, but we want reasonable rules and reasonable regulations so people can enjoy their property. You should be able to go to the range. You should be able to be a member of IPSC. You should be able to go to these matches. We have Olympic sport shooters, for heaven's sakes. Like, let's get back to common sense. Get rid of the red tape. Get rid of the problems that so many people are facing on a daily basis. Get rid of there's a massive bureaucracy. You know, so just do the math. There's 2.5 million law-abiding gun owners in Canada. Whether it's a 5-year license and a 5-year renewal period, and if you actually divide that out with how many days there are in a it's like 13 or 1,400 people a day need to have their firearms license either approved or renewed. And I mean, that's a massive bureaucracy. I think everybody wants to know that there's background checks, that people are in a good state of mind. Let's focus on those things rather than it's usually somebody struggling with some other aspect of their life that's causing any problems when there is a problem with a law-abiding firearms owner. It's usually got nothing to do with the make, model, and variant of gun that's in their cabinet.
And I know this is a provincially legislated and mandated and regulated topic here when it comes to the grizzly bears in Alberta. But I kind of wanted to get some high level takes from you here, as somebody, again, who is intimately involved in the hunting caucus, right? So we know that grizzlies, both here in BC, Alberta, they're off the table for hunting and harvest. How do you think that came to be?
Yeah, so I mean, the announcement was very clear in British Columbia. I mean, the minister stepped up to a microphone and said, "This has got nothing to do with science at all. This is everything to do with public opinion," and basically canceled or shut down the grizzly bear hunt from what otherwise would be a very sustainable population, I believe, of grizzly bears. I predicted that this is about 10 years ago now.
2017.
Yeah. So this happened at the time. I predicted that there will be a significant increase in about 10 to 15 years time. So I'm guessing we're probably starting to see that in BC now. You could tell me probably more than I would know, but it's very predictable that we're going to have higher rates of human wildlife conflict when it comes to increase in grizzly bears. In Alberta, I believe the decision was more based and premised in science. The grizzly bear population, depending on who you talk to, was at a low enough level that I believe the government of the day was convinced that it needed to be taken off the table. But it's now back in Alberta. We have the ability where there's problem wildlife, where there's a problem bear, rather than just dealing with it let's say a conservation officer goes out and puts the bear down or whatever the case might be, hunters can now pay for the privilege of being part of that process. And if the bear is going to die anyway, at least this way, a hunter can be part of it, which is good, because I mean, hunters play that role, right? I mean, I don't know too many. So our provinces and territories, for the most part, unless we're dealing with migratory birds or whatever, deal with it. They have the responsibility of managing wildlife populations, of managing all of these things, whether it's a grizzly bear populations, wolf populations, caribou populations, moose, deer, elk, whatever the case might be. And they issue tags and permits when populations get too high in certain areas, and they reduce the amounts of tags and permits that you can get in certain areas when the population gets too low. And we as hunters actually pay the government. We pay. I pay my government a conservation fee. I pay all of these things every year for the privilege of helping them manage their wildlife numbers.
Yeah.
So in essence, what I'm doing is I'm doing something I love, but at the same time, if it wasn't for me and my fellow hunters out there doing this, there would likely be somebody that's actually being paid by the government to go out and deal with problem wildlife, whereas hunters and trappers will happily manage that. And will actually even pay for the privilege of going out and doing that, keeping populations in check. But of course, we all want abundance, but we don't want overabundance. We don't want disease to run rampant. We don't want, we don't want a bunch of moose all over the highway and stuff causing problems. So we want sustainable populations. We want abundance where it's reasonable, and we want stable populations everywhere else. We want to make sure that First Nations have their ability to go get to exercise their rights, and of course, those of us who are regulated hunters want abundance. So we're part of the system. We join fish and wildlife clubs. We join rod and gun clubs. We do these things to go out. We put our money where our mouth is. We invest in conservation. We go to, I can't tell you how many of these banquets I go to all the time, where I show up with a full wallet and an empty stomach, and I leave with a full stomach and an empty wallet, and hopefully that money's going to conservation, doing something good for ducks and geese, or for mule deer, whatever the case might be, whatever the cause of the day might be. Wild sheep, in a lot of cases, I go to a lot of the wild sheep events, and that's what we do. So the grizzly bear thing is bizarre, because in BC it was ballot box biology. And I think that's really dangerous stuff, because now populism is now trumping science when it comes to making wildlife decisions, fish and wildlife management decisions, and I think that's dangerous to go down. It's one of the key pillars of the North American model of wildlife management is science. Science has to be paramount in making the decisions on how we manage and maintain populations, all populations of all species, but particularly those that are game species. So we know that when we do that, I mean, the white-tailed deer, white-tailed deer were almost extirpated in North America at one particular point in time. Now there's millions of them. So we know that regulated hunting, properly regulated and managed hunting, is absolutely critical, not only critical, vital, and important, and pays for, in a lot of cases, the research and conservation measures that are in place. So I'm pretty sure that we're in Alberta here. The current government is using the science as the main tool in making these decisions. But I'm pretty sure in British Columbia that hasn't been the case.
You are not wrong at all. I can tell you firsthand. I'm a big black bear hunter. I spend a couple weeks every spring out there just driving around. And 12 years ago or so, in a week you might see one or two grizzly bears. Now it's every day. I was just had a couple of friends out 2 weeks ago. Every day we were seeing grizzly bears.
I spend a lot of time in the West Country, and anecdotally I can say we've got there's grizzly bear sightings now in my constituency, and that's kind of unheard of. So in the west part of my constituency, which is easily 150 kilometers from the actual foothills and mountains, so these animals are wandering out here. The elk the elk are very thick now out on private land, farmland, used to see a lot of black bears out west. Now when I'm out west, if I'm fly fishing on a river or something like that, I'll see grizzly bears more frequently than I see black bears.
Yeah,
it's anecdotal. That's just my anecdotal experience, but I think it's pretty common anecdotal experience across.
Oh yeah. Here as well. Like, this is what we are firsthand seeing, and it's not a hesitation of, oh, could that be a color phase black bear? No, it's absolutely a grizzly bear, right? And there's usually more than one, right? You're seeing great fecundity with the sows. They're kicking off 2-3 cubs at a time, so they're doing well. And you're completely right. The premier at the time, John Horgan, he did a soundbite and it said, it's time to close the grizzly bear trophy hunt in BC. And I think what was really, really grating and frustrating to myself, who's intimately involved in conservation for years, is one of the carrots they dangled in front of us was, okay, we're just going to make the grizzly hunt on par with the black bear harvest, where you just had to take the edible portions. And we were all on board. We were punching that out, going, yeah, we're going to make a difference here. We're still going to be good. And then all of a sudden, bang, it was everything gone. And back to that ballot box biology, as you said, they realized that their voting base didn't like it. It was nothing about science. And it's so frustrating. So as we wrap this up, how can hunters, anglers, sport shooters become part of that plan? How do they get involved?
If you're a hunter or an angler in anywhere in Canada, you should be joining or getting involved with organizations that are going to advocate and stick up for and defend your rights. It's the same Wild Chief Society, BC. Yeah. Yep. So these are the organizations that need to have. In order to have a bigger voice, you need money, you need resources in order to get into that game. Right now, these organizations like World Wildlife Fund and so on, not saying good or bad, I'm just saying they're well funded. I mean, they've got millions, if not billions of dollars behind them. You take a look at the Packard Foundation and some of these Gordon Betty Moore Foundation down in the United States, Pew Charitable Trusts. They create their sister organizations here in Canada, and they have billions of dollars in assets in these trusts. So they can fund massive campaigns to do things like, shut down salmon fishing on the West Coast and to protect southern resident killer whales. They can convince the public that something that might not, they can embellish something to the point where the public believes it, and then deny other people access or privileges that they've long had. I don't know anybody who fishes for Chinook and coho on the West Coast that's causing problems for southern resident killer whales. I don't know anybody. I mean, if a fisherman can catch them, then I'm pretty sure the southern resident killer whales can catch them too, right? So it's not about abundance anymore. It's about control and access, and that's what's. I think that's the biggest existential threat that we actually have. Firearms are a huge issue, but I actually think access is going to be a bigger issue in the years and months or years and decades to come.
Yeah, that's
as big as Canada is. If you think about it, why would 30%
that's a lot.
The second largest geopolitical, 30% of Canada is bigger than I think 185 of the other countries in the world.
That's mind blowing to think of that sort of landmass that they want to control, right? Like, wow.
So if we literally took 30% of Canada's landmass, put it in a like I said, under some type of conservation or protection parks like status, if you added all that land up, it's bigger than 185 of the 196 countries in the world.
You can't even wrap your head around that. So,
so that's where we're at. So I would encourage the listeners to just be paying attention. Like if you don't exercise your rights, if you're not paying attention, you will lose them. So get in the fight.
Awesome. I think that's an absolutely perfect way to end it there, Blaine. A huge thanks for joining me today and making some time out of your busy, busy day. And a huge thanks from all of us for all the great work that you're doing.
Well, love you guys at Wild TV. Keep doing what you're doing. And appreciate the interest, and I'm happy to help anytime, any way I can.
We'll definitely take you up on that and have you back.
You bet. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Wild Talk, powered by Better Call Paul, is brought to you by Better Hunting,
Better stories, better call Paul. Umarex, hunt with air. Bronc beer, great bucking beer.